mercy and help us navigate through every trial and difficulty in life. Oh Allah, make the best of our days the last of our days, and the best of our actions the last of our actions, and the best of all days the day that we meet you and you are pleased with us. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Jazakumullah khair for coming. Barakallahu ta'ala feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us all. Before I actually begin the talk, I want to remind you that this Sunday we have a very special program, and that is that we're going to celebrate the 29 years of ICPC and the presence of this community in this area. Alhamdulillah, since 1990 the community has been working hard and growing and developing, and mashallah we've grown into the thousands, and alhamdulillah we have 2 locations and 2 masjids, and mashallah many hundreds and hundreds of youth for the past 3 decades, thousands and thousands of youth for the past 3 decades have learned at ICPC and have grown at ICPC and have come to call this place home. So on Sunday we're going to reflect on that legacy, and we're going to make some presentations about the coming stages and the coming work at ICPC and the growth that is happening. So please join us. It's going to be Sunday at 5 p.m. until Salat al-Isha. There is going to be a dinner there, and you can find more details on the flyers outside over there, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. So now we'll begin the lecture, inshallah. Bismillah. As you know, the theme of our community hub has been the lives of the companions over the past year. And we've discussed many companions, alhamdulillah. And today we have a short story, and that is the story or the life of Sayyidina Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was one of the well-known companions, and he was very close to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ trusted him with many secrets. Sayyidina Hudhayfa and his father were both companions of the Prophet ﷺ. His father became known as al-Yaman, but that wasn't his original name. His original name was Husayl, and it was originally from Ghatafan. And when he was young, and this was before his Islam, he got into a conflict with another individual, and he took that person's life, and he fled from Ghatafan to Mecca. And as the years passed, he got married to a woman from Aus, from Bani Abd al-Ashhal, and he became their Halif. And a Halif is someone of the Arabs who relocates to the area of Mecca or the area of Medina, and he was basically adopted by this tribe because he was wanted by his people in Ghatafan for taking the life of another person. So the people of Bani Abd al-Ashhal, the people of Aus, took him in. They adopted who? They adopted Husayl. And they gave him a new name, Yaman, coming from Yamani. Al-Yamani means the Yemeni. And that is because the tribe of Al-Aus was originally from Yemen. So they named him after their original location, which was in Yemen. Tamam. So Sayyidina Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman, that was the story of his father. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was a very close companion to the Prophet, and Sayyidina al-Yaman became a Muslim early on. He wasn't one of the first Muslims, but he became Muslim before the Hijrah to Medina, and he actually witnessed Bay'at al-Aqaba. So Sayyidina Hudhayfa, was he from the Ansar or from the Muhajirin? Please try to contain the children. If you have very young children, you can try to take them to the lower level and sit down and listen from there. Jazakumullah khair. Says Naeem, if you see children in the hallway here, please close the door and ask them to stop making noise. Jazakumullah khair. So Sayyidina Hudhayfa, was he from the Ansar or from the Muhajirin? Who are the Muhajirin? The Muhajirin are the Muslims of Mecca. Ansar, the Muslims of Medina. Was he from the Ansar or the Muhajirin? What do you think? He was from the Muhajirin? He was actually from both. He asked the Prophet ﷺ this question. And the Prophet ﷺ told him that he's one of the few individuals who's actually from both. Sayyidina Hudhayfa is not only from the Ansar and he's not only from the Muhajirin. His mother was from the tribe of Aus. She was from Medina. His father spent many years in Mecca and became Muslim before the hijrah from Mecca to Medina. So Sayyidina Hudhayfa was actually from both. Not from the Ansar and not from the Muhajirin. And the Prophet ﷺ told him this. It says, Anta ya Hudhayfa min al-Muhajirin wal-Ansar. Right? So, initially, when his father became Muslim, al-Yaman became Muslim, he did not make his Islam public. He did not announce his Islam. And for this reason, when the kuffar of Quraysh were going out to meet the Prophet ﷺ in Badr, they were actually approached by the kuffar. Who was approached? Hudhayfa and his father al-Yaman. And they told them, where are you going? إِنَّكُمْ تُرِيدُونَ مُحَمَّدًا. You are going to be with Muhammad, aren't you? So then Sayyidina al-Yaman told the kuffar of Quraysh, مَا نُرِيدُهُ مَا نُرِيدُ إِلَّا الْمَدِينَةِ. We intend to go to Medina. We're not going to be with the Prophet. We don't intend. And they took an oath upon, who took an oath? The kuffar of Quraysh took an oath upon Hudhayfa and al-Yaman not to join the Prophet ﷺ in fighting against them. So they gave this oath. So they went to the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't go to Medina. And they told the Prophet ﷺ, and this is golden, please pay attention to this. They told the Prophet ﷺ that as they were making their way towards Badr, they were approached by the disbelievers. And the disbelievers asked them where they were going. So they did not fully tell the truth, because if they told them we're going to be with Muhammad, they're going to be killed. They said, we're intending Medina, and they took an oath upon us not to fight with you. You know what the Prophet ﷺ said to them? He said, انصرفا نفي لهم بعهدهم ونستعين الله عليهم. I'll say it one more time. نفي لهم بعهدهم ونستعين الله عليهم. هذا هو الخلق المحمدي الرفيع. The Prophet ﷺ said, you made an oath that you won't fight alongside me. Who did you make this oath to? You made it to my enemies. He said to them, go, continue on to Medina, don't fight with us in Badr. So Hudhayfa is saying, the reason why he didn't witness Badr, and the reason why his father didn't witness Badr, was because the Prophet ﷺ prohibited them from doing so. Why did he prohibit them? Because they made an oath. An oath to who? The enemies of Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ told them, no, fulfill your covenant to them, and Allah will assist us in defeating them. This is al-khuluq al-Muhammadi. The Prophet ﷺ had a sense of loyalty and wafa. The Prophet ﷺ, as we said in our recent khawatir, al-wafa min abrazi khuluq al-nubuwa. It is one of the most apparent and most gleaming characteristics of prophethood, loyalty. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ خَوَّانًا أَثِيمًا. So that's an interesting tidbit from the life of Sayyidina Hudhayfa and his father. They didn't witness Badr because they made an oath to the disbelievers they won't, and the Prophet ﷺ commanded them to fulfill their oath, because the Prophet ﷺ was a man of loyalty. Sayyidina al-Yaman passed away in the battle of Uhud. And he was a very elderly man when the battle of Uhud happened, right? He stayed behind with the women and children. Him and a few of the other elderly people didn't go out to the battle of Uhud because they were excused. He was an elderly man, right? So they went out to, so the companions and the Prophet ﷺ went out to Uhud, and Sayyidina al-Yaman stayed behind. Please guys over there, guys, you either come and sit down, or you go and you close the door behind you. Jazakumullah khair. Alright, so Sayyidina al-Yaman spoke to one of the elderly people. He said, we're at death's doorsteps anyway. So why not our death come to us when we're on the battlefield? So they decided to go catch up with the Prophet ﷺ and join the battle of Uhud. And this is actually something very interesting happened here. While the companions were engaging in the battle of Uhud, initially the Muslims were winning, right? And the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari mentions that a voice called out from behind, أي عباد الله أخراكم, أي عباد الله أخراكم. A voice called out and said, pay attention to your rear. Pay attention to your rear, there are enemies coming from behind. And one of the people that was in the latter ranks was Sayyidina al-Yaman, and he came late to the battle. And because he was wearing the armor, you cannot tell who's who. So they thought the enemies were behind them. So the Muslims actually began fighting with each other. The front ranks began fighting against the latter ranks. And this is part of the confusion that happened in Uhud. And Sayyidina Hudhayfa noticed his father. So he was trying to call out and plead with the other companions. He started saying, Ibadallah, Abi, 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 this is my father. But he didn't get there in time, and Sayyidina al-Yaman was actually killed at the hands of some other Muslims who did not know that he was actually from among the Muslims. So he was killed by the Muslims accidentally. And Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ ordered that 100 camels, which is blood money, be paid to Sayyidina Hudhayfa from the spoils of Uhud as blood money for the wrongful death of his father al-Yaman. But Sayyidina Hudhayfa took that money, that 100 camels, that's a fortune, and he gave it to the poor and needy of Medina. So that's something interesting about the life of Sayyidina Hudhayfa. His father was killed by another Muslim accidentally because the confusion during the Battle of Uhud led to the Muslims fighting with one another, and it led to their eventual loss in the battle. And in fact, his reaction to the death of his father was, he said to the people who killed him accidentally, يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Another interesting thing about Sayyidina Hudhayfa, he is regarded as صاحب السر and حامل سر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the keeper of secrets. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was the keeper of secrets. And there's something very important to reflect on here. The Prophet ﷺ was very big on delegating responsibilities, even if he was able to carry out those responsibilities himself. Because the Prophet ﷺ wasn't about promoting the idea of the jack of all trades, someone taking on all the responsibilities themselves and not including other people in the process. No, the Prophet ﷺ could have done many things on his own, but he made it a point to include the companions in the process, because he made it a point to establish the precedent that this da'wah cannot be dependent upon individuals. It needs to be that the individuals find their place and find their guidance in the da'wah, not that the da'wah is in need of X, Y, or Z individuals from among people. Because the Prophet ﷺ was preparing the companions for the stages to come. If the Prophet ﷺ didn't have this inclusive approach, then immediately when he passed away, there would be no one to continue the mission. There would be no one to carry the message after his passing, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose Sayyidina Hudhayfa as the keeper of secrets. Why him specifically? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam decided, for one reason or another, to give him this special role. What do we mean, the keeper of secrets? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given by revelation the names of the hypocrites. And as a secondary protection, he would mention these names to Sayyidina Hudhayfa. And he would keep record of everyone who the Prophet ﷺ named as a hypocrite. And the reason why the Prophet ﷺ kept this issue secret, the Prophet ﷺ could have gone to the masjid and he could have said, I've received revelation that Fulan is a hypocrite and Fulan is a hypocrite. But he didn't do that. He kept it secret. Why? Why did the Prophet ﷺ keep the issue of hypocrisy secret from the rest of the companions? Something important to reflect upon. Because the Prophet ﷺ was training us how to deal with others. We have been commanded to deal with people based on their outward appearance. وَأَن نَكِلَ أَسْرَارَهُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. This is the precedent the Prophet ﷺ was setting. I have no query and I have no reason to investigate the sirr of my fellow brother. I have no reason to do that. Whatever Allah has concealed from His affairs is between Him and His Lord. As long as it's been concealed and hasn't been made apparent to me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is His judge. The Prophet ﷺ was setting this standard. Tamam? Please, my two young sisters in the back, in the right corner. Sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Please, if you're going to talk, please go downstairs. Okay? Jazakumullah khair. Alright. So, why keep the names of the hypocrites secret? Because the Prophet ﷺ was raising us as an ummah, how to deal with one another. I don't need to find out your secrets. I don't need to spy upon you to investigate and to bring out your dirty laundry. No, that's not what we're all about as an ummah. We deal with what's on the outside, not what's on the inside. There's another reason. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to keep this as a safeguard. He wanted them to be known, but he didn't want to publicize it. Just in case if someone was to take a position that was very crucial and very critical later on in the progression of the ummah and in the growth of the ummah, that there would be someone who will be able to warn the leadership of that person so that that person doesn't cause corruption. Now, there is actually a very interesting tidbit from this, from Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar asked Sayyidina Hudhayfa the following. He asked Sayyidina Hudhayfa, أَفِي عُمَّالِ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ? He asked Hudhayfa, are there any hypocrites in the governors I've put in place? So he said, Wahid. Yes, you have one who's a hypocrite. So then he asked, Man huwa? Who is this hypocrite? And then he said, La adhkuruhu. I cannot mention him. I will not mention him. I will not mention him. So then Sayyidina Hudhayfa said, فَعَزَلَهُ فَكَأَنَّمَا دُلَّ عَلَيْهِ. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu removed that governor. He didn't know who he was. But Sayyidina Hudhayfa knew who he was. And when Umar removed him, he said it's as though Umar was inspired to remove this person who he knew by revelation, by the information from the Prophet ﷺ, that this was indeed from among the hypocrites. So this is Sayyidina Hudhayfa. I know there's something important to reflect on here. We talk about hypocrisy. It's very important to note that the munafiqs of the time of the Prophet ﷺ were different than any other munafiqs in human history. Or in the history of this ummah, I should say. Different than any of the rest. Why? Because they had the example of Rasulullah ﷺ right in front of them. And yet, they still plotted against him. And they still tried to ruin the affairs of the believer and cause friction among their ranks from within. Imagine that. That's very different than someone being a hypocrite today. Alright, there's another reason why they were the worst hypocrites. Because that was Islam's glory days. And the damage that they were in position to do was far greater than the damage that anyone else could do in later years. That was when Islam was still being established and growing. Now, what is a hypocrite? Who is a hypocrite? There are two types of hypocrisy, brothers and sisters. The hypocrisy that was prevalent during the time of the Prophet ﷺ was different than the hypocrisy that was prevalent in any other time. Why? We have a hypocrisy in creed, and we have a hypocrisy in faith, in actions. We have a hypocrisy in faith, and we have a hypocrisy in actions. What is this? Hypocrisy in faith. What is that? That is someone who really does not believe in Islam, but he says he believes. He knows he's not a Muslim, but he's trying to present himself as a Muslim to weaken the ranks of the believers from within. He's like a spy among the believers. He's not a believer. And then you have another type of hypocrite who is a hypocrite in actions. And this is the person who believes, but his belief is so weak and so faint, he commits the major sins. He lies, he breaches trusts, he does acts of aggression. Is he still Muslim? Yes, he's still a Muslim, but he has the attributes of hypocrisy and his faith is very faint and weak. The first one's not a Muslim at all. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes these in the Quran. وَقَالَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ آمِنُوا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَجْهَ النَّهَارِ وَاكْفُرُوا آخِرَهُ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Believe in what Muhammad ﷺ says in the earlier part of the day, then disbelieve in it in the latter part of the day. Perhaps they may doubt their faith and doubt their religion. So this is what hypocrisy looked like. There's another interesting tidbit with the keeper of secrets, and that is Sayyidina Umar and his fear of hypocrisy. It's reported that Sayyidina Umar came to Sayyidina Hudhayfa and he said, "Anshuduka Allah, hal sammani laka Rasulullah?" I ask you by Allah, did the Prophet name me among the hypocrites? This is who asking? Sayyidina Umar asking Sayyidina Hudhayfa, did the Prophet say I'm a hypocrite? Now Sayyidina Hudhayfa said to him, "La, wala uzaki ba'daka ahada." No, he didn't name you, and I will not answer that question for anyone else. No one who asks me that question after this will receive an answer. So there's something to think about here though. Wasn't Sayyidina Umar promised Jannah? Wasn't he among the 10 given glad tidings of Jannah during his lifetime? Yes, he was. There were companions who were given glad tidings of Jannah while they were alive. If that's the case, how could he think that he was among the hypocrites? Why would he have this fear? There's an answer to this question, right? One of these answers is that Sayyidina Umar exemplified faith. Iman, what is it? It is to be in a constant struggle between khawf and raja, fear and hope. Sayyidina Umar at times would be overcome by fear because of what he sees as his own negligence. And that's what faith is, to be between khawf and raja. That's one reason why he asked this question. And another reason is that he might have thought that the statement of the Prophet ﷺ that he is from the people of Jannah was about his earlier condition. But maybe he changed. Maybe he did something wrong that ruined him, right? And left his deeds made his deeds become invalid, right? So that's why he asked this question. And why did Sayyidina Hudhayfa answer? The scholars, they say, did Sayyidina Hudhayfa breach the trust by answering Umar's question? Because the Prophet ﷺ took a trust upon Sayyidina Hudhayfa not to divulge the secrets to anyone. Don't mention any of the names of these hypocrites to anyone. So, did he breach this trust when he answered Sayyidina Umar? No, they say, "An-nafyu ghayrul ithbat." Denying is different than establishing. He didn't name someone on the list. He simply denied that Umar was on the list. So he didn't breach his trust. An-nafyu ghayrul ithbat. Anyway, did Hudhayfa attend the funeral? That was something that Umar would always be on the look for. He would see when Sayyidina Hudhayfa attends a funeral and when he doesn't. When Sayyidina Hudhayfa didn't attend the funeral, Sayyidina Umar would refuse to lead the prayers upon that person, because he knew that meant that that person must have been on the list. And he didn't want to pray on a hypocrite. He didn't want to honor the hypocrite with his prayer, Salat al-Janazah. He wouldn't want to do that. So he would always be on the lookout who Sayyidina Hudhayfa attends the janazah for and who he doesn't. Right? Something else about Sayyidina Hudhayfa. He has a very interesting story in Al-Khandaq, in the battle of the trenches. A young man later on approached Sayyidina Hudhayfa and he told him, if I was alive during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, I would have fought along his side and I would have honored him and I would have done everything possible to be with the Prophet. This young man said this to Sayyidina Hudhayfa. So Sayyidina Hudhayfa said, you very well might have done so. But then he reminded him of a very interesting thing that happened to the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ. He said to him that during the battle of Al-Khandaq, there was strong winds and cold weather, and fear dominated the hearts, even of the believers, to the extent that the Prophet ﷺ made a request and no one stood up to answer that request. Sayyidina Hudhayfa is telling this young man, hold it right there. You think that you would have done and you would have done and if you would have done and you would have been the best person if you were a companion? You really don't know. It might be, that if you were alive during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you would have been among the munafiqeen. You don't know, right? So there was a point when even the great companions refused to answer a request, or not refused, were too afraid and too terrified to answer a request from Rasulullah ﷺ. To the extent that he said, أَلَا رَجُلٌ يَأْتِينِي بِخَبَرِ الْقَوْمِ جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ مَعِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Is there a man among you who will bring me news of our enemies, and he will be with me on the day of judgment. No one stood up. He says, فَسَكَتْنَا فَلَمْ يُجِبْهُ مِنَّا أَحَدٍ. Sayyidina Hudhayfa said, no one answered. The Prophet ﷺ said it again. أَلَا رَجُلٌ يَأْتِينِي بِخَبَرِ الْقَوْمِ جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ مَعِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Will someone go get news of our enemies and he'll be with me on the day of judgment? What a great dua from the Prophet ﷺ. An opportunity just to do one action, an opportunity to be guaranteed Jannah. No one answered. The Prophet ﷺ asked it a third time and no one answered. So then he told Hudhayfa, Hudhayfa, stand up and go get us news from the people. Go get us news from our enemies. Right? So Sayyidina Hudhayfa, he wore his gear, and of course he covered his face as was common. It was cold winter night, and there was a lot of wind. It was strong winds. Sayyidina Hudhayfa went out, and something very strange happened. In the hadith they say this is one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. Sayyidina Hudhayfa felt a weird, strange sense of warmth. It said that it's فَكَأَنَّمَا أَنَا أَمْشِي بِحَمَّامٍ. He said, it's as though I was walking in a hot bath, in a hot shower. You know those hot steam rooms. Hammam, the old hammam, is not like the hammam, the toilet that we have today. This is the old steam rooms. It's as though I felt a very strange sense of warmth. All the cold and all the strong winds were not affecting me anymore. I went and I sat among the enemy and they did not realize me. And I was so close to their leader, Abu Sufyan, I could have killed him. And I was actually going to get my arrow out and shoot a shot at him. But then I remembered the command of the Prophet ﷺ, don't give them notice of your presence. So he went back and he informed the Prophet ﷺ that the disbelievers, their affairs were in disarray and they were getting prepared to leave. And the siege of al-Ahzab, the Confederates, was coming to an end. So this is another incident that happened with Sayyidina Hudhayfa. This warmth stayed with Sayyidina Hudhayfa until he returned to the Prophet ﷺ. As he himself says in the hadith, I felt this strange sense of warmth until I came back. Once I got back, I became as cold and shivering as everyone else. That's a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes you might feel something similar to it. You might be in a very difficult situation, big adversity, a huge trial. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you a weird sense of comfort and a weird sense of confidence. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving tathbeet. يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Sometimes you might see someone, or you might be that person in that trial, and people will see it as, how is he enduring this big difficulty? Alright, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He told the fire, Kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim, be warmth and peace for Sayyidina, be coolness and peace for Sayyidina Ibrahim. He told the fire this. The same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make a trial that people would see as so unbearable, very easy for you to handle. And that's from at-Taysir al-Ilahi. Brothers and sisters, another thing about Sayyidina Hudhayfa is that he was known to be one to inquire about fitna and about trials and difficulties. And he said about himself that there's no one alive during his time who is more aware of the things that will happen until the day of judgment than me. Because as he said, كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني. He said that people would ask about good things, I would ask about bad things. Because I was always getting ready for the times of difficulty and trial. And I didn't want to be that person who fails when trials come. So Sayyidina Hudhayfa was very aware. And he would actually make it a point to ask the Prophet ﷺ about this. And to memorize these statements. And one time he said that the Prophet ﷺ stood and gave them a long talk. That lasted an entire day. And he told them about things that will happen from his time until the day of judgment. And he said, حَفِظَ مَنْ حَفِظَ وَنَسِيَ مَنْ نَسِي. Some memorized and some forgot. He said so many things, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was aware of those things. Sayyidina Hudhayfa had some participation in the battles. He participated in every battle after al-Khandaq. He also played a big role in the conquest of Syria and Persia. In fact, Sayyidina Hudhayfa, when Sayyidina Nu'aym ibn Muqrin was killed, actually became the general leader of the Muslims in the conquest of Persia against the Sassanid Empire. So Sayyidina Khalid ibn al-Walid was leading the efforts against Syria, and Sayyidina Hudhayfa was leading the efforts against Persia, not against Syria, against the Romans I mean. Sayyidina Khalid against the Romans, and Sayyidina Hudhayfa against the Persians. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was given the governorship of Al-Kufa and Al-Mada'in during the time of Sayyidina Umar. And in fact, he stayed in Mada'in. Where is Mada'in? Mada'in is in Iraq. It's a place in Iraq where he was given authority. It's actually away from Baghdad. It's outside of Baghdad, not too far outside of Baghdad. And he was given leadership and governorship over that area. And there's actually a very interesting thing that happened. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was a very simple man. He wasn't about glamour. He came into the city of Mada'in, the cities of Mada'in, and he read to them the letter of Sayyidina Umar, that he was to become governor. And they saw this simple man riding in on a donkey, and he read to them the letter. So they asked him, how much do you want to fill this role as governor? What are you asking for? So he said, food to eat and dried grass to feed my donkey. That's what I want. Years passed, and Sayyidina Umar asked Sayyidina Hudhayfa to come back. And Sayyidina Umar was very keen on always holding his governors accountable. So Sayyidina Umar hid as Sayyidina Hudhayfa was approaching. And he saw him just the same as he had left. That simple man, not changed by that position of leadership. So Sayyidina Umar came out and he hugged him hard and he said to him, Anta akhi wa ana akhuk. You're my brother and I am yours. You're my brother and I am yours. Sayyidina Hudhayfa actually stayed in Mada'in until he passed away. He stayed there until the year 36. He passed away shortly after the murder of Sayyidina Uthman, and after the leadership, after Sayyidina Ali assumed leadership. There's something very nice here. When he was on his deathbed, he ordered that 2 cloths be purchased for his kafan, the shrouds that he could be buried in. He asked them to purchase shrouds for him. So his assistants went and they bought the most expensive shrouds they could find for 300 dirhams, 300 silver coins. And when they came back, he saw how expensive it was, and he told them, return it. He commanded them, return it. And he said the following. He said, return it, for I will only be wearing those shrouds for a short period. Then I will either be wearing the best of the best or the worst of the worst. I'll look at his attitude. He said, I don't need these expensive shrouds in my grave. This is an important lesson for everyone as they're making burial plans for their loved ones or for themselves in case that they were to pass away. It's not about the outer appearances. It's not about spending thousands of dollars on a tombstone or on a very expensive casket and so on and so forth. No, these madahir mean nothing. In fact, they may be detrimental to the deceased when they're in their grave. These madahir mean absolutely nothing. They're from the israf. That someone spends thousands of dollars on a burial. That absolutely serves no benefit whatsoever. Sayyidina Hudhayfa set the precedent. I don't need these expensive shrouds because I'm going to be wearing them for a short time. Either I'm going to go on to wear the best of the best in Jannah or the worst of the worst in hell. Wal-'iyadhu billah, the garments from hell. So these shrouds that you're going to put me in are of no use to me, or of little use to me. On his deathbed, he was actually seen crying. So he was asked about this, why are you crying? And he told them, I'm not crying from fear of death, but I am crying because I do not know if my Lord is pleased with me or not. Sayyidina Hudhayfa was a very righteous and pious man, and he passed away in Mada'in, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, the keeper of his secrets, the one who was keen to know about conflict before they came. And in fact, his place, his burial location was known for generations. And in 1933, it's actually mentioned that the Euphrates was getting close to his grave. The Euphrates River was flooding, and there was overflow, and the flood water was coming close to the grave of Sayyidina Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman. And it was about to be overrun by the river Euphrates. So the king of Iraq at the time, his name was Ghazi ibn Faisal ibn Hussein, actually ordered that they move the grave of Sayyidina Hudhayfa. And of course they didn't uncover his shrouds, but they pulled out, and there was actually a body, it was a shrouded body, and they moved this body from being overrun by the Euphrates River to another location. This was when? In 1933. Sayyidina Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman was a great companion of our dearly beloved Prophet ﷺ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower His mercy and His blessings upon him, and to gather us with him and our dearly beloved Prophet ﷺ in Jannah. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.